In the summer of 1944, a German spotter plane circles low over a stretch of the French countryside, and everything the pilot sees confirms exactly what he already suspects. Tanks are parked in neat rows. Trucks line the roads, artillery pieces sit dug into the tree line, and the whole camp hums with the low growl of an armored division settling in for the night. But almost none of it is real. The tanks are rubber, inflated by hand and propped up on wooden frames. The trucks are canvas stretched over metal skeletons, light enough for 2 men to carry in a duffel bag. And the engine noise rolling across the valley isn't coming from a single real vehicle. It's blasting out of a speaker bolted to the back of a half-track, miles from where the sound seems to originate. The men responsible for all of this aren't hardened infantry. Many of them are painters, illustrators, radio engineers, and sound technicians, recruited straight out of art schools and at agencies because the Army needed people who understood how to construct a convincing lie, not just how to fire a rifle. Some of these recruits would go on to become famous in their own right. A future fashion designer sketched camouflage patterns, and a future abstract painter spent his days studying how light and shadow could sell an illusion from the air. This was the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, a unit of roughly 1,100 men who spent 11 months building fake armies out of rubber, sound, and static, and using those fake armies to walk German commanders straight into traps the Allies had already set. Secrecy wasn't just procedure here, it was survival. The unit's real purpose was classified at a level most Allied commanders never even saw, which meant that officers fighting right alongside them in the field sometimes had no idea they were watching a division-sized illusion built overnight by a few hundred men, then quietly dismantled before sunrise. History would eventually call them the Ghost Army, though almost nobody knew they existed until decades after the war ended. Their first real test came just weeks after D-Day, when the 2nd Armored Division needed to quietly pull out of position without leaving a hole the Germans could spot from the air. It was a rough start. The unit's sound equipment hadn't even arrived in France yet. A local civilian nearly punctured the illusion by literally denting one of the inflatable tank barrels, and real artillery fire from the departing division mixed with the fake setup just a few miles away, blurring the line between illusion and combat. But the mission taught the Ghost Army what it didn't yet know: how to coordinate with real units, how to hide the small details that give a fake away, and how to sell a lie to an enemy who was actively looking for one. From there, the unit refined its craft into something far more layered. Building a decoy wasn't as simple as unpacking rubber and walking away. Portable air compressors could inflate a dummy tank in about 30 minutes, hissing away in the dark, while soldiers worked fast and quiet, always aware that a German patrol wandering too close could end the entire operation on the spot. Once inflated, it only took 4 men to lift an 11-ton fake tank and carry it into position like a piece of furniture. But rubber alone never sold the lie completely, because real armored columns leave scars on the land. Compressed tank treads, churned mud, trampled grass spreading out from hidden camps. So, engineers drove real vehicles in looping patterns just to leave authentic tracks in the mud around empty rubber decoys. They hung laundry on lines, lit staged campfires, and timed flashes of light at night to mimic distant artillery. And when visual tricks weren't enough, when the enemy was close enough to listen instead of just look, the unit's dedicated sound engineers took over. This job fell to a specialized signal company that even maintained its own weather station, because sound doesn't travel in a straight line, and getting the illusion right meant accounting for wind, humidity, and terrain, the same way an artillery officer calculates a firing solution. They'd recorded genuine engine noise, gear grinding, and construction sounds onto state-of-the-art equipment, then layered and mixed those recordings into complex soundscapes designed to replicate the acoustic chaos of an entire division on the move. Played through 500-pound speakers mounted on half-tracks, audible for up to 15 miles at night, the sound would shift position between broadcasts, convincing German units that a large force was maneuvering under cover of darkness. Commanders on the receiving end rarely risked sending scouts close enough to verify it, so they simply treated the noise as fact and redirected real artillery fire toward empty forests, chasing an army that existed only on a spool of magnetic tape. The unit's boldest moment came in September 1944, when Patton's advance left a nearly 70-mile gap in his line along the Moselle River, defended by almost nothing. Patton himself reportedly admitted there was a dangerous hole in his position and simply hoped the Germans hadn't noticed it yet. Roughly 500 men from the 23rd were rushed in to impersonate an entire armored division nearly 8,000 strong. They lit cooking fires at dawn, sewed on fake unit patches overnight, ran invented radio chatter across multiple networks, and sent soldiers into local towns to be casually overheard talking about their division in cafes and bars, planting a story for anyone who might be listening. One soldier even posed as a general and toured the area by jeep just to be seen, while others played their roles so convincingly that one man running the sonic equipment later admitted his own eyes started believing what his ears were hearing. The bluff was meant to hold for 60 hours. It held for nearly a week, long enough for the real division to arrive, without a single serious German probe testing how thin the line actually was. That success fed directly into the unit's radio deception work, where operators studied the exact rhythm and touch of real Allied signalmen so closely that they could impersonate entire divisions over the airwaves after those divisions had already moved on, feeding false intelligence straight into German command. This was reinforced by something the unit simply called atmosphere, the quiet, sustained impersonation of wearing another division's patches, staging general-level visits, and letting soldiers be seen in nearby towns doing nothing more dramatic than existing convincingly. It was theater performed for an audience that never knew it was watching a show, and a single wrong word in the wrong bar could have unraveled the entire operation. By the time the war reached its final months, the Ghost Army had run this playbook over 20 times across Europe, and its last performance was its biggest. In March 1945, ahead of the Allied crossing of the Rhine, the unit combined every trick it had spent a year perfecting: sonic broadcasts, over 600 inflatable vehicles, spoofed radio traffic, and staged troop sightings to simulate 2 entire infantry divisions, roughly 30,000 men who didn't exist. The illusion worked so well that a real American reconnaissance plane, apparently fooled by its own side's decoy, actually landed on one of the fake airfields. German artillery opened fire on a position that was completely empty, and the only casualties were a handful of punctured inflatables, patched and reinflated before morning. While German attention stayed locked on a crossing that was never coming, the real assault force moved into position elsewhere, and when the actual Rhine crossing happened days later, it met almost no resistance. And yet, despite pulling off one of the most elaborate deceptions of the entire war, the unit's existence stayed classified until 1996, meaning most of these men went their whole lives without anyone knowing what they'd actually done. Every trick in this story worked for the same simple reason. The human eye and ear want to believe what they're already told to expect, and that's not a weakness unique to one army or one war. It's exactly how deception is supposed to work on anyone, then and now.